trade shows and the underwater community. We're going to talk about that today.
Welcome to Colonize the Ocean podcast, where we discuss oceanic colonization, exploration, and education with your hosts Adam Jewell and Brendan Traxler.
So with DEMA closely approaching at the time of this recording, it's only a few weeks away, and then we have underwater intervention as well as other dive-associated conventions hosted annually around the world. It got me thinking about, once again, this very niche community that we're in, and organizations like Underwater Intervention, which used to be its own standalone, has partnered with another organization that focuses on boats and maritime law and all that kind of stuff, just to exist. And so it just speaks to the volume of that niche community of us focused on the underwater. DEMA is by far the largest convention for the scuba community, because that is a huge hobbyist group. But when we start looking at the industrial side, or the side that, those of us who are concerned with underwater habitats there isn't really, it's a gray area. So us at ASC will be hitting up DEMA and underwater intervention this year for the networking purposes of it. Both of them hold different, markets as far as who they're attracting. And so that's the thing. But I guess the question, and the reason I wanted to talk about this real quick, was how does this very niche market, how does it flourish, and how do those of us in the underwater habitat community, how do we focus on these, and how do we make this work? Several years ago, one of the guys I was networking with at the time, he wanted to start his own underwater convention type of thing, and he was all about it. I gave him some money to save a booth and all that, even though I knew that it was not going to come to fruition, because he wasn't getting the feedback that he wanted, and I think he was pushing it too fast too, to be honestly. But it serves a point of, how do we make this work? Where do we reach out to? Who do we network with? How do we get that name out there? It's always a question that we keep on having with different marketing is, how do we get the name out there? And so is this what we do? We hit up like-minded communities like this, whether it's the scuba, the boating, the underwater industries, whether it's, oil or ROVs, etc. And we just slowly network with them. Is that how this happens? Or is there a better or different avenue that we should be looking at? One of the things I have talked about multiple times with a lot of this, is it's throwing darts. It's like throwing darts, that you're aiming for that bullseye. And it's almost like throwing darts blindfolded. You're just throwing darts trying to make something stick, because you really don't know how to make this work in an area that doesn't really exist. The private underwater housing, hotel, business market doesn't really exist. So how do we make that? How do we grow that? How do we build that? And so is there value, in which I believe there is, in hitting up these underwater conventions? And more so to that is, if you've a second question, a segue or to the second question is, if you've been to these underwater conventions before, what was your takeaway from them? What did you like and what did you dislike from them? What could they do better? What were they lacking? And then at the same time, to look at the good, what did they excel at? It's like, wow, that was really cool. I didn't expect that. That was above and beyond. Anyway, so that is basically the whole gist of the day. It's kind of a twofold question. Is first off, underwater habitats and underwater conventions, is there a cohesive melding there? Is there a viable reason for us in the underwater habitat community to be focused on going to these conventions, or is it a waste of our time and money? And secondly, if you have been to any of these conventions, what was your takeaway? Good and bad. I'd be curious. Hit us up on the socials. Let us know about both these things. And we look forward to having some great time at these conventions and bringing back some really good information for all of you. I hope you all have a great rest of your week whenever you're listening to this, and we'll be in touch.